I will say this. It ends stronger than how it began. The Pikes have arrived and they're closing in on Boba Fett along with the now revealed Cad Bane. So Boba must gather all his forces to even stand a chance. Before I properly start with my review for the finale and the series of the Book of Boba Fett, let me know your thoughts on it. If you enjoyed it, anything and everything down there, just start a conversation because it's always the most important part. And if you like what you see here and you like movies and TV, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. My thoughts on this show as a whole have been very well documented. There's a review for basically every episode, even though at one point I gave up on this, but then it became a completely different show. So I came back to it to talk about it. I just needed to vent. And these videos, I'm very proud of the videos I've done, but they're kind of also therapy sometimes for me. So this finale is the best out of the episodes that actually focus on Boba Fett. I would say it's a solid episode overall. It's a solid finale. But it fully, and even better than the last two, showcases all the issues this show had from the beginning. Throughout this past week, I went back to watch the show. I went back to watch every single episode from 1 through 6. And the ones that I didn't like didn't get any better, unfortunately. The ones that I already liked also didn't get any better, for that matter. But this show, it's frustrating to see that a story was there. It's frustrating to see that the pieces were there. But we didn't properly build up to anything. We didn't properly set all these pieces and all the players in this proverbial game on a collision course towards one another. We presented the elements and then just seemingly suddenly brought them together at the end. Where the Pikes were talked about, but we saw them in the past once in episode 2 or 3, I think. And then we saw them last week sabotaging the bar. And that's not even a direct attack on Boba Fett. So as a threat, they were not properly set up at all throughout the show, I think. Even Cad Bane was a nice surprise last week. Not only to see him in live action. I think that's just awesome. I think all of us Clone Wars fans were happy in that single moment of the episode. But he works as a muscle for the Pikes. And in this finale, I just wish we could have seen more of him. By the way, full spoilers, as always, for this finale. Because I'm about to talk about what a waste of Cad Bane this was. Because we got introduced to him last week. We get a quick conversation between him and Boba that almost feels like they don't know each other. That confrontation first, when they're trying to negotiate at the beginning of the episode, almost feels like they're meeting for the first time and they don't even care who the other is. But then the latter one, the one that happens at the end, and they have the fight and the shootout, that one works. That one carries the history that these two have with one another. Not only through the tension that is generated through the performances, not so much the story, sadly, but through the lines. We even get Cad Bane joking about how Boba needs to go to the Bacta tank, which, by the way, how does he know that? I don't know, but nevertheless, a joke that works for us fans who have been constantly annoyed that he goes back to the Bacta tank. And then Cad Bane dies, and it feels like a waste to introduce him last week, and then this week he's killed. This should have been the conflict at the heart of the show. Cad Bane versus Boba Fett, carrying their history, how Cad Bane has always been better than Boba. But it's all microwaved as a story and as a conflict. It's just this one scene focusing on it, that some lines are quickly mentioned to refer to that history very quickly, and then Cad Bane is just dead. And having that as the big personal confrontation for Boba to complete his arc just fully captures how the character and story beats throughout this entire show were rushed. And they were all just executed on this one episode. It's not like we knew Cad Bane was involved or like we saw his involvement and we understood the power dynamics between Boba, Cad Bane, and the Pikes from the beginning. This was just... it was all here in the finale. And don't get me wrong, there are cool things in the finale. There are cool moments. Seeing Mando and Boba fighting together, Western style, the two gunslingers against an army. That's great. And I thought Robert Rodriguez did a good job with the action. Not a fantastic job, not like super impressive, but good job. I could see what was happening. And there are great moments of them flying around in the jetpacks, fighting against those massive droids that feel right out of the Republic era. Seeing Din little by little start working better with the Darksaber, using it. Seeing Boba Fett fucking riding the Rancor. Then even when he went out to search for more friends, at first I thought the roar was a TIE fighter sound. I was like so confused for a sec. But it's so fucking awesome to see him riding the Rancor. Baby Yoda returning with a chainmail shirt. R2-D2 brought him over. Could have done without the Pelimoto and Major Domo's comedy routine. And my god, seeing Grogu use the Force not to throw the Rancor away or anything, but to calm it down and put it to sleep. Not using violence, but the pacifist Jedi way. That was brilliant. And when Din finally sees him again and they hug and he jumps to embrace him, that's the sweetest fucking shit, man. I love that reunion. It was also cool seeing the people of Freetown coming to help Boba out of their own volition in kind of revenge for Cobb Vanth, who I was surprised to hear that he's dead. But then there's a post-credit scene, and turns out we went back to the expected outcome. And so he's gonna come back, which is cool. But again, just so much happening in this episode. Just all the character and story beats crammed, introduced, and fleshed out over this 1 hour episode. Which, great that they gave us a 1 hour episode, and the longest of the season, I believe. But to introduce all these important character conflicts, all these story beats, all these character beats to it, where some characters at points even feel like they're just out of the picture because there's nothing for them to do script-wise. Even Fennec, who goes off in the distance to assassinate the Pikes and the mayor, it just feels like an afterthought. Even when the other crime lords betray Boba, it's a cool thing, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Because it was such a one scene that happened once, and it was not even a highlight of the show. I'll give him that I hadn't thought about them betraying Boba. But even Boba acknowledges, and Mando acknowledges, that it was a smart move. So, cool for them. But again, such an insignificant part of the show when they didn't properly build to it. They didn't properly build that tension. It was a surprise for the sake of being a surprise, where they even overpower Crescenton, which I totally do not buy that they would. But nevertheless, then he's just back and he overpowered them off screen, I guess. There are just so many issues with the Book of Boba Fett as a show supposedly focused on this one character. It feels unfocused. It feels off completely when it comes to pacing. There's just too many styles. They didn't find a single one style for the show like they did once upon a time in The Mandalorian. And all these cameos that we got, it feels cheap. Even Luke not coming in. I'm glad he didn't. Because if he did, this would have been a 15-minute episode. It would have been over like that. Narratively, I would have liked to seen a reason why Luke doesn't come himself. Or even Ahsoka, for that matter. But it's frustrating. It's a fun, action-packed episode that I thought was done very well in terms of the action, of the spectacle side of it. But the actual substance of this show just never came to be. Because those seeds were not planted and nurtured through time, through the span of these 7 episodes. Knowing, seeing from the beginning, there's a story to be told with this character. There's a story to be told about this conflict of Boba trying to gain power and become the daimyo, but then having the syndicate wanting to take control of the spice in and out of the planet. There's a story there. There's your premise. Now, fulfill that promise. And I don't feel like the Book of Boba Fett ever did. The show just had an identity crisis where for the most part it didn't know which story it wanted to tell, and it didn't do enough to connect those parts. And then the episodes that don't focus on Boba just had all those pieces and all those smaller stories done very well for the most part. So I think, as I said in the beginning, I think the Book of Boba Fett ends up stronger than how it began. But with so much going on and so many unnecessary moving parts, the emotional impact that the show could have is ultimately diminished. The resolution feels rushed, overstuffed, and like we got a more satisfying conclusion and arcs for virtually everyone else over our leading character. To the point where the final note we leave in on this episode is Mando and Grogu back together, and that was the emotional focal point of the show. There are many lessons to be learned from the Book of Boba Fett. To not cram in everyone and everything. Trust your story, trust your central character, focus on his conflict, on his struggle, and allow long-term storytelling to do the bulk of the job. The ideas were there, but unfortunately, because everything is so crammed in and not taken advantage of, it's just an overall underwhelming and emotionally hollow experience. I'm giving the Book of Boba Fett a C. I can't deny that there are cool moments in this show that I enjoyed as a fan. All the action, all the spectacle, all the small character interactions here and there. But as a story, and for something that was meant to bring Boba Fett back and show us a whole new side of him, it doesn't completely satisfy me. But I hope you love it. I hope you enjoyed this. So let me know your thoughts and just start the conversation in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for my reviews for Uncharted, Peacemaker Episode 7, and I already have my review up for Death on the Nile and Catwoman Hunted. I still have the Blu-ray back here. I forgot to take it out. Thank you so much once more for watching. Thank you to my channel members Bruno and Stuart for making this video possible, and there's a link in the description for you to see if you'd like to become a member. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.